Here we are on location in Seattle, Washington for this week's Ask Ron from the Quick Start Real Estate School. I'm here with Ron LeGrand.
That's him.
Brian Wolff and Lynette Wolff, who are known as
the Wolff Couple.
All right, so here we are with the first question, who happens to be from Mary Ann Nunez in California.
Wait, who is Mary Ann Nunez? Who is she?
We know Mary Ann very well, and we appreciate Mary Ann's participation in Ask Ron.
Sometimes, yes.
So, Mary Ann actually I have 3 questions.
Okay.
Question number 1. What if we do a lease purchase and sublease to a tenant buyer and stay in the middle and seller dies before cashing out of seller files bankruptcy?
Well, anytime someone dies, the heirs are responsible for fulfilling the obligations of a contract that was entered into in good faith by the person who was deceased.
So if the deceased has got a wife, then she'll sign. If not, the heirs have to sign. If not, trustee has to sign. And if none of that exists, then you just have to go to a lawyer and figure out who needs to sign.
All right, question number 2 for Mary Ann. If I don't buy with owner financing and I lease option from seller and sublease to a tenant buyer and I stay in the middle, is that called a sandwich lease?
Now, Mary Ann, you know the answer is yes. Why do you ask us that?
Yes,
you know darn well it's yes.
She just likes participation.
Just like to pester us, don't
She's
you?
going to get the participation
She's trying to
award.
help
It's
others-
okay, Mary Ann.
Yeah. Okay.
Question number 3 from Mary Ann.
Okay.
Am I incorrect
Yes.
to say,
She didn't say anything yet.
let's start this again. Sorry, Mary Ann. Am I incorrect to say that you have said that you don't normally give any down payment to seller when you do a lease option from the seller and plan to sublease to a tenant buyer?
I don't.
Right.
We usually
Well,
put nothing down.
I'm not saying you can't. I'm not
Yeah.
saying I haven't ever, but I can tell you it's got to be a pretty high-end house for me to give them any money at all, so I know I'm going to get a huge deposit back.
That's right. Now remember, when you're doing a lease purchase, sometimes when you are offering an owner finance deal and it makes more sense for you to own the property, people will ask more often for a larger down payment there. Sometimes you can actually switch strategies. You can pitch an owner finance deal and they say, well, I need 10% down for that. But then you switch strategies and you say, well, maybe we could do a sandwich lease. You don't say sandwich lease purchase, but then you talk about a lease purchase with them, and then all of a sudden they're okay with like first and last month's rent. So you just went
that.
from
Get that, yeah.
and so that really works well to sometimes switch to that strategy. But on a lease purchase, you never want to put very much down.
Okay, so the next question is from Donny in Ohio.
Hi, Donnie.
And Donny recently had a seller that was asking quite a few questions of him, and it said, they asked if he had a website, how long has he been doing this, how much does he typically get as a down payment on a house, this price, wants to know if the tenant buyer's credit report, how does he deal with these type of people?
Well, I can answer that. Donnie, if you're getting those kind of questions, it's your fault because you talk too much. You're trying to do a seminar to your seller because they wouldn't have all those questions if you didn't raise those doubts in their mind.
That's right.
You should not be even telling the seller what you're going to do with the property unless they ask, and usually they don't. And what your focus is on, how you can buy it, not how you intend to
Yeah,
sell
we
it.
just explained that we're going to
Yeah.
be buying the property ourselves, and they don't need to worry about the exit strategy. So
when-
you're definitely talking
When
too
you hear
much.
those things, the seller's got doubt, and they probably don't believe you can do what you say, so they're questioning you on it. So you got to get better at talking less and just simplifying everything. So when the seller asks me what I'm going to do with the property, I say I'm either going to lease it and sell it or sell it. That's the end of that conversation. Yeah.
Yep.
Two points on this. One thing is you have to, how you say it is just as important as what you say sometimes. And if you come across, and Ron, this is a pet peeve of Ron, is when you guys are begging out there, and it makes you seem less credible. So if people are going to ask you questions, if you're coming off as if you don't really know what you're talking about.
And we need to tell them the definition of begging means you're preaching and teaching.
That's right.
When you're preaching and teaching, you're begging.
Yes.
You ask the questions, they answer them, not the other way around.
The other thing I want to address here is your website. Everybody does need a website. I'm sorry, but in today's world, you look a little bit unprofessional if you do not have some kind of website. And you can get that through the Gold Club, but everybody needs to have something that you can just refer people to. And when you get questions like this, that's usually the best drop-dead objection answers. Just say, hey, have you checked out our website yet? And send them to your website, and that will establish your credibility.
In our Gold Elite $297 a month program, a website is just one of the many benefits that comes with it. And by the way, I'll tell you what I tell them if they ever question me. I say, why don't you just Google me? Now, you better Google yourself before you tell anybody else to Google me. You might not like what you see.
Okay, so the next question is about land trusts, and this is from Scott in California.
Scott?
Hey, Scott.
He has two questions. The first question, when buying subject to, we're having the seller place the property into a trust, of which my corporation is the trustee. Once executed, we have the seller transfer the beneficial interest into my name. Is this the right way to set this up?
Well, there's probably nothing wrong with that, except I just normally make my own corporation the trustee and make me or my whatever entity I want to be the beneficiary interest. I don't really need the transfer from the seller. I can tell you why you're doing that. You're doing that because we used to teach you to have the seller put the property into a land trust and then transfer it to you, so if the bank ever called a loan due, you could show the land trust with the seller's name as beneficiary. Since they can't call a loan due because the seller put the property in their own land trust. Honestly, you don't need to do all that crap. Just create the trust, you be the beneficiary and be done with it.
Okay, Scott's second question.
Scott?
Since the seller is placing the property into a trust, should they be paying the county and city transfer tax at that time?
That has nothing to do with the trust. If the seller sells the property and transfer tax is due, it's between the buyer and the seller who pays the transfer tax. That's a negotiation thing, no matter how they sell the property.
And
That's another reason why you probably had them put them in a land trust, because you technically can screw the city out of their transfer tax, because the seller can put the property into a land trust and not have to pay transfer tax. And then, of course, nobody knows you transferred the interest to a land trust. However, that's not exactly the right way to do it, and you may have to go back and pay the price plus a penalty when the city finds out that that's not exactly what was done. But, you know, you have to make your own decisions on how you want to run your business.
And everybody needs to be aware of what the transfer taxes are, and some of you guys are starting out and you don't know this simple question. How much is it to buy a property in your state? Now in Arizona, believe it or not, it's 17 bucks. 15 bucks to actually record the deed, and $2 for
crazy
the
cheap.
I
affidavit
wish
of
I could
value.
say that for
We
Florida.
love it.
Yeah, but see, Florida and a lot of other states, you're paying very high. We're here in
$7
Washington.
per thousand in Florida just for transfer tax.
We're here in Washington here, they pay about 1.8% excise tax, they call it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty considerable, that's $1,800 on, you know, every 100,000. So that's, you're paying a pretty healthy commission there.
In California.
Yeah, and in
I mean,
Washington,
Washington.
right. So you be aware of that, and once you're aware of that, then, you know, and all this land trust stuff, guys, it's way simpler than you think, and don't let it slow you down, because I've seen that happen.
Okay, so the final question for this week's Ask Ron is from Tyler in Wisconsin.
Tyler.
Tyler says, I have seen a merry-go-round in one of your lessons, and I remember you mentioning your roots in a carnival. I work for a small traveling carnival here in Wisconsin where I'm the Ferris wheel foreman. My question is, what was your job on the carnival, and how did that translate into your success as an entrepreneur?
My job on the Carnival, sir, started when I was 11 years old, and I used to be the guy to put the pins in the middle of the Ferris wheel up top, because that's where my dad stuck me, because he couldn't get anybody else to go up there. Wow. And by the way, if you're ever seen how a Ferris wheel goes together, you don't want to know. There aren't any bolts. It's all pins.
Oh,
Okay. So anyway, that's the beginning of my Carnival days, and then I was out on the Carnival for 3 years before I got into real estate with skee balls, rolling the ball up the alley. And I'll tell you how it relates. It tells you what the true meaning of work is. When I was on the Carnival circuit for 3 years, We played the big fairs. We'd open at 8 o'clock in the morning. We'd close at 1 a.m. the next morning, 10 days in a row with no breaks in the middle. And you were there the whole time. You didn't get to go smoke every 15 minutes or go to the potty break every 4 minutes. You were there the whole time because there was nobody to run the thing for you. So that my skee balls, where you roll the balls up into the alley and you put a quarter in the machine, and I'll tell you, some of the most money we made was on the biggest carnivals, the biggest fair circuits, where we paid the most rent, which is another lesson altogether. Sometimes paying the higher rent is the cheapest way to go. But I learned a lot of lessons in my carnival days. My dad was in the carnival his whole life. That's where I got my carnival background. And boy, they know how to work, I can tell you that. And they appreciate the small things because they don't, they don't have much time to do anything else. And you just learn what work really means when you work in the carnival. And they appreciate organization. If you ever seen a carnival move, it's like moving a city every 10 days. I mean, literally, an entire self-contained city was moved every 10. It was a work of art. It was fun just to stay out there on closing night and watch that place go from a thriving carnival to a vacant lot in about 6 hours.
That's amazing.
Carnival taught me a lot. Also taught me how to bark.
He's still good at
Skee ball,
barking.
quarter to play, quarter to win. If you don't play, you can't win. Put your quarter right there.
He's still barking today.
But I'm glad you asked. On the Ferris wheel, huh? There you go. Brings back memories. I didn't know they still had them.
All right, well, that's the last question for this week's Ask Ron.
See you guys.
See you.
Bye, guys.